Coming up next, the Bookening reads Sredni Vashtar. Hey everybody, welcome to this Bookening. This is your humble and obedient ghost. There we've got the scholar who's a mauler of bleeding, Brandon Chastfiend. Ooh, how we doing, Brandon?
Doing great, Nathan. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And we've got Pastor Jacob Menskiller, the pastor who's a master of bleeding. How we doing, Jake?
I'm bleeding masterfully.
That's what you do. Now, guys, today, this is day 3 of our Horathon, our spooktacular week, Wednesday. And today, I think we might be getting to something that maybe we like.
Maybe.
I hope. You guys were pretty hard on Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Excuse him for helping invent the form of the short story. What a jerk. Oh man, I can't believe his writing style doesn't come up to the writing style of 21st century Americans. I can't believe he didn't read his Hemingway and learn to cut down on those thickets of verbiage. I can't believe you were interested in dark psychology. Nobody's interested in that except for you, Poe. You're not popular or iconic at all. And if you are, there's not a reason for you
He doesn't
to be.
understand why people took our Lewis episodes personally, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you make a fair point, Jake. I guess I've learned a valuable lesson.
1 star.
1 star. Guys, and then we read Young Goodman Brown, a
We
spooky story of witchcraft run amok in old New England. Oh boy, was that scary.
Oh, it was
And
terrifying.
then, as if our teeth hadn't already chattered out of our mouths, as if our listeners haven't been locked in the closet already for 2 days out of trepidation and fear that they might come across a ghoul or a spook if they should venture forth.
Or a critic.
Or a critic.
Yeah.
We are daring to talk about the story of a ferret that kills an old lady.
Maybe. We don't know for sure.
Sredni
Yeah, we do.
Vashtar by one H.H. Munro.
Ooh, also known as Saki.
Also known as Saki. Brandon, provide us some much-needed
Saki.
context
Do you have some Saki?
on Saki. Yes, provide us some much-needed Saki.
I would love some Saki. You have some?
Nope.
Oh,
Yes, I do, in the form of Sredni Vashtar.
Nathan, as you already mentioned, he was known as Hector Hugh Munro. You didn't actually say that. You said H.H. Munro, which
Yep.
he would go by. Also known as Saki.
Mm-hmm.
His pen name.
Cool.
So there we go.
Thanks, Brandon.
That's it.
Elucidating,
all I
or
got.
illuminating as always.
He had an interesting life, but it was a fairly short life because he was born in 1870. He was killed in World War I, and he has no known marked grave. And so, fairly short life. At his time, he was known primarily as a journalist. He's lived on more in modern memory as a short story writer.
Mhm.
This is one of them. This is a famous one. You mentioned the storyteller to me.
Yeah.
But also, what are some of the other ones, Nathan? I'm not as familiar with Saki.
We had a series of stories about a guy named Reginald, and it's very much in the vein of Oscar Wilde. Reginald is this witty, kind of cynical young man who causes trouble and says witty things. His early stories are like just collections of people saying witty things. I think he coined the line, "She's a woman who would be gratefully improved by death." If you've ever heard that bon mot, he came up with that.
So he was a witty guy.
Yeah, he's a kind of a Oscar Wilde type guy.
Truman Capote type. He kind of reminded me of a Truman Capote type figure.
Yeah, but the storyteller, if you don't know that one, is about a guy who's on a train with 3 brats who won't shut up, and so and their aunt is trying to corral them, and so he tells them this grotesque story of a little girl who's awarded a medal for obedience and a medal for good manners and a medal for charity or something like that, and then a wolf comes seeking her in the garden, and she hides in the bushes, and the medal for obedience clanks against the medal for good manners as she's cowering in the bushes, and the wolf drags her out and devours her, and the children are all thoroughly pleased at this story, and their aunt is horrified.
Not the aunt, yeah.
He was good at those cynical little strychnine stories laced with strychnine would be my pull quote that I'd put on the
And
front
the
of the book.
aunt in that story, and also the cousin in the one we read,
Mhm.
Sredni Vashtar.
Sredni Vashtar,
Sredni Vashtar is however you say it.
Mm-hmm.
they're loosely based on the puritanical grandmother and aunts that he was raised by.
Yeah.
Because he was born in Burma in 1870, but his mother and his father both died, and so he had to be raised by his grandmother and his aunts. Maybe I don't know if his father died when he was young, but his mother did. His father was an inspector general of the Indiana Imperial Police, but I think it was the
Indiana Imperial Police.
The Indian Imperial Police, and his mother, Mary Frances Mercer, and she died in an interesting way. You know how she died?
No.
She died from shock after being charged by a cow. And so
when that happened.
Yeah. I found this article on him. He said, Saki's mother was killed by a cow when he was a child. If that doesn't turn you into a writer with a morbid fascination with and deep-seated fear of the natural world, nothing will. Done to death by the very emblem of placidity and plenty, nothing could ever seem safe or homely again.
There you go.
And I think that's probably true. So this, and a lot of people that I read about Saki or Munro really pinpoint this moment as kind of a defining moment in this child's life.
You don't say.
Yeah.
The death of his mother.
When she was but the strange death of his mother.
I think that the death of one's mother, no matter how strange or banal, would be a pretty defining moment.
You would think.
I'm going to say if you add cows to the mix, that just ratchets it up.
It might just twist your imagination. And then you add a very strict and puritanical grandmother and very strict and puritanical aunts. And you have the recipe for would later become Saki.
I actually read another story by his not too long ago. What is it called? It's called The Penitent or The Penance or something like that. It's about a guy whose chicken coop is getting raided by a cat. And so he kills the cat, but the 3 children who live next door who own the cat see him do it. And so then they just stare at him across the hedges until he starts to go mad, and they say, like, he buys them candy, and he finds it all shredded up in his yard. And then finally he leaves his own baby untended one day. They steal it. They climb up onto the barn and drop it down into the mud of the pigsty where it starts to sink. He dives into the mud, begins to sink and die, and starts to bargain with the children. And they say that he has to stand outside by the grave of their cat and perform some kind of a ritual of penance, or they'll let him and his baby die. And so he dies, and it's a beautiful story.
He does it?
Wow.
Saki just liked to do this weird British kind of boring, banal life meets, I don't know what.
Like Roald Dahl.
Yeah, very Roald Dahl-ish, actually, yeah.
And Roald Dahl would have been writing not too much later. Yeah, he did. He started his career as a journalist for newspapers like the Westminster Gazette, Daily Express, Morning Post.
Good to know.
I think the Morning Post is still around.
Yeah.
Also the Bystander. And apparently his first attempt at becoming a writer was actually he wanted to be a historian. And so he wrote The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which was modeled after Gibbon's book, The Rise and Fall of the Western Empire.
Right.
And it was not a very big success, but during that same period, he began to write political satire, which would then take him into short story, satiric style that we have today.
Right.
Within the one way that we read today is not so much a horror story as it is a biting something. I don't know what it is.
Biting neck.
Yeah. But like I said, he had a fairly brief career because he was published in the 1900 is when he got his start. And then by the 19-teens, he was dead because he died in World War I. So there's not a whole lot other than his success with them as short stories, becoming a known writer that really there's to say about him other than the fact that he was a homosexual.
That's a real shocker, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real shocker. I didn't see a lot about that other than the fact that people say, like you do, the real shocker, puritanical aunts, mother died early and wanted to be a writer in this time that, like Oscar Wilde, that's generally a recipe for a homosexual at the time, and a repressed one as well. And so, do you have much more to say about him? The only other thing I have to say is where his pen name came from.
Yeah, where did his pen name come from?
There are multiple guesses. Nobody really knows where it comes from. Some say it's a reference to a cupbearer in the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which was a famous poem in the mid-1800s.
So his translation would have come out in Saki's lifetime? Or, sorry, I wasn't...
A little bit before that.
A little bit before, but it would have been a big deal still.
I think it was particularly the translation. Let's figure this out for sure.
What's the name of the guy that did that? Is it Fitzgerald or?
Yeah. Let's look it up. Because this was a big deal, I think, especially for like the Romantics and stuff. Yep, Edward Fitzgerald, 1859. So it would have been the Victorians, not the Romantics. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you were right, Fitzgerald. So it was either taken from that, or there's a person named Emlyn Williams who, in his introduction to a Saki anthology, says it could have actually been taken from a monkey. There was a South American monkey.
Monkey's pen name,
yeah, it's a South American monkey of that name, which at least two commentators, Tom Sharp and Will Self, have connected to the small, long-tailed monkey from the Western Hemisphere. That is a central character in the remolding of Groby Langton. So it's either a cupbearer from a famous work from the Victorian era, which was influential for all sorts of writers at that time, or it was from a monkey. So
like a specific monkey or a species of monkey? I'm still not clear.
There may be a reference to the South American monkey of that name. So let's see if we can find a picture of this.
Is that a species of monkey called Saki, or was there one South American monkey who was
Saki monkey?
We're a famous Victorian monkey?
Yeah, here's a Saki monkey right here.
A Saki monkey?
A Saki monkey. You want to see it?
Yeah, I hear Saki monkeys are going to be really big this Christmas. Oh, I don't know that I've ever hated anything more than that.
There it is.
Looks like it's wearing a wig.
It looks like a vulture can't you face on.
Yeah, if you smushed a vulture, or if a vulture stood in one of those mirrors that makes you look fat, like at the circus, you'd have a Saki monkey.
There's another one.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah. Apparently that's who he's named after.
Thanks for not shoving that one off of the ark, Noah.
Yeah.
I don't think we need Saki monkeys. Not a fan. What an ugly creature.
And apparently a Saki monkey makes an appearance in the remolding of Groby Langton, which is a story by H.H. Munro.
There you go.
So that makes sense. I'm of the monkey camp.
You're in the monkey camp?
Sure, why not?
In the Saki monkey camp?
I think most people commonly think it comes from the Fitzgerald Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. So,
well,
have you ever read the Rubaiyat?
Yeah,
I had to read bits and pieces of it before.
I don't know if I've ever finished it, but
yeah,
it's got some nice stanzas in there, I guess.
So there you have it, Nathan.
All right. Well,
anything you want to add?
Oh, just that I've enjoyed Saki over the years. I think he's kind of a what do you want to call it? He's an unknown quantity. Most people.
Yeah, I had not read much, if any, Saki. I've read something by him before, I know.
He's got a handful of stories, this being one of them, that are pretty commonly anthologized.
I never read this one. I want to say I've read an essay by him for some reason.
There's a famous one about a girl that tells stories. Again, she manages to cynically frighten somebody with them. I forget what the story is called, but the last line is pretty famous. Romance at short notice was her specialty. There's like a handful of stories that just find their ways into 7th and 8th grade textbooks and...
Sorry, I just remembered.
Things like this. Yeah, what was it?
The Rubaiyat. That was influential for the pre-Raphaelites. The Rossettis.
The good old pre-Raphaelites.
That's who it was. I knew they influenced somebody. And that's who it became like a cult classic for that group of people.
When I think of pre-Raphaelites, I think of my homeschool friends who were girls who had posters of
Christina Rossetti
and other things along those lines. Knights rescuing maidens.
Oh, yeah.
Maidens underwater and all that great pre-Raphaelite art. So guys, what do you want to say about Sredni Vashtar, that naughty rodentious demigod or whatever he was? Or was he?
I read it with some students today.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How'd they like it?
Some of the students immediately, as they were leaving class, they told me they were going to start the cult of Sredni Vashtar.
Okay, that's good. I feel like you and the Bookening is a success then.
I didn't know what to make of that, because some of these students that were saying it they may have been serious.
Of aunts or mothers or anything like that they're not particularly fond of.
Yeah.
Teachers, probably.
Teachers.
Yeah.
Don't go into any shreds. Or shreds, did I just say shred? Yeah. Shed.
One student found it sad.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. To think about the isolation of this Conradin kid. And yeah.
Jake, your thoughts?
I don't know that I have a lot of thoughts. I feel like I've maybe read this before, and
it so powerfully affected your psyche that you're too scared to talk right now.
I'm not. Yeah, that's
You're so
exactly.
spooked out by the idea.
So spooked, yeah. And it so powerfully impacted me that I'm not sure if I had read it before or not. It is a good little short story, I guess.
It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, it accomplishes a lot.
There are things that you can talk to students about.
Such as?
Oh, well, like what are his comments on belief? What is he saying about, because Conradin has this cult that he builds, is he making a comment on what it means to...
Oh, you're one of those teachers.
Well,
Well, what's the answer? Is he making a comment on?
We talked about it. I'm one of those teachers. What do you mean, Jake?
One of those teachers that makes his students think.
Just let him have fun with the short story, man. It's a fun short story.
It was a fun short story, but
no, it's a allegory of belief.
It's not an allegory of belief.
Was it a trick question? Like, it doesn't say anything, you idiots.
I'm not saying I enjoyed the conversation, Jake.
Brendan's like, most illuminating.
Listen, I needed to get this read for tonight, and I had to justify it by making some conversation about it with my students.
I made him read it again. I thought it was fun and entertaining, but then we read you want to know what really happened? And I hope my students aren't listening.
Yeah.
I thought reading the story was going to take all the time. And then we got to the end, and we still had like 20 minutes left in class. And so
you're like, oh crap, I've got to talk about this.
It's an AP Lang class, and so we had to. The thing that you're supposed to look for is character, theme, and setting, stuff like that. So I said, okay, let's look at the characters and the themes. What do you think comes out? So of course they bring up the cult versus the cousin's religion, and so then it turns into a conversation of belief. So there you go, Jake. I wasn't trying to get them to that point. The
cult had real power as opposed to the cousin's religion, or did it?
What do you guys think? Was Sredni Vashtar actually? Did he listen to Conradin's prayers and kill the ant on purpose, or was it just coincidence?
Yeah, so that came up in class too, and the ambiguity of the ending. So one of the students pointed out the fact that you don't see the ant die.
No,
she could have just died of a heart attack. You don't know that Sredni Vashtar killed her.
But Sredni Vashtar comes out with blood on his muzzle, doesn't he?
It could have been the berries. It could have been.
Were there berries?
Yeah, he feeds them berries and feeds them the red nutmeg. So there's just, the ending is ambiguous.
No, it's not.
Not really.
It's not.
Because the people, you hear the servants saying, who will tell the poor child? And Conrad smiles and makes himself another piece of toast.
But see, we've made the point that we don't do those sorts of analyses on the Bookening. That's not what we do here.
Right? But I just want to point out the fact to these dumb students.
Yeah.
No. Brendan's students are really smart. But
we had a fun conversation because we had to.
Listen.
Yeah.
There's a difference between leaving things ambiguous, like the ending of Inception, I suppose. The top could fall or the top couldn't. We don't know whether it's going to fall. There's also a kind of ending where you don't leave things ambiguous, but you just simply leave things implied.
Leave it to the imagination.
You leave it
to figure out the. Yeah.
It's more fun to not actually see the ant's body, and it's just.
No, what's fun is that Conradin was inside and didn't need to see it. He knows what happened. He's going to make himself some more toast.
Yeah. She never let him have toast. Now he's going to have a second slice.
Yeah.
Because she was killed by a ferret.
Because she was a ferret that then walks into the woods. And he's a god because he's Sredni Vashtar the Beautiful.
Yeah.
And he gives good things to his followers. And I was glad that my students' takeaway, I actually was kind of glad that their takeaway was, this was fun. Let's go start our own cult. They were joking.
Yeah.
But that gets back to the fact that in the end, they did see this as a fun story. The discussion didn't ruin it too much, Jake.
Oh, good.
I really think you should have asked, do you guys think that it's good to worship ferrets?
No, I don't.
Jake, your thoughts as a pastor.
Well, I'm concerned about the poetics of this hymn.
Oh, let's hear the hymn. I don't remember it.
Sredni Vashtar went forth. His thoughts were red thoughts, and his teeth were white. His enemies called for peace, but he brought them death. Sredni Vashtar, the beautiful.
Sredni Vashtar went forth.
You think my Solomon Lions would sing that?
Yeah, that's what I hope so. How much you want to bet a metal band has done a song?
$0. I bet you $0.
About Sredni Vashtar. Seems like the kind of thing that some dumb Norwegian metal band.
Some metal band has at least taken this hymn and set it to music.
Yeah. There is a band on Bandcamp
named
Sredni Vashtar. Yeah.
They're a metal band.
Yep. Oh, can we hear a little bit of them?
I'm not getting anything.
Here, I've got this. Did
you hit the volume on your actual computer?
Thank you, Jake.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, we're listening to a little Sredni Vashtar. Hold that up to the microphone, Brandon, so our listeners can get a taste.
They're dressed as terrifying gypsies or monks. You want to keep watching this?
No. Good heavens, no.
Okay. They apparently picked up on the hidden theme of horror that I didn't see in this story. I was wondering why this was included in a horror anthology. It seemed more of a tongue-in-cheek satire to me.
Honestly, I first encountered it in a horror anthology, and I've seen it in lots of horror anthologies. It's it's like a perennial of horror anthologies, and I think that's probably why it's lasted. Not because it is a great horror story, but simply because it gets re-anthologized in little horror collections all over the place.
Weird.
Thought about a boy that starts a ferret cult, and then the ferret kills somebody.
But that's funny.
Yeah, I know that's funny,
that
Brandon.
It's a ferret.
You and I both know that when ferrets kill people, it's hilarious.
I mean, despite the ridiculousness of our discussion, anybody can read this story and see that he is...
The ferret?
No, he's making fun of everything, right?
Yeah.
That's the point of this. He is making fun of religion with this story.
Is he, Brandon?
I think so. Either that or he had a ferret that he worshipped. Those are your two options.
Maybe he really believes in the mystical power of belief.
I think there's probably a political reading.
Maybe he wished. Maybe he
political...
wished that his mom would die from a cow, and then it happened, and he got fascinated with the whole idea.
Now there's a reading none of us came up with, Jake.
That is a reading. I'm gonna say
maybe he wondered if his dad or somebody else wished his mom to die from a cow, and then he wondered if he could do the same. He maybe spent his whole childhood wondering if he could control animals like that.
Maybe a demon cow made him.
See,
write this.
my take on this is that he was an effeminate homosexual agnostic who decided to write a story.
So far, so good.
To entertain the other effeminate agnostics of the time about the weakness of belief. Yeah.
I really think that we are Conrad, and the ant is like the 1%. She's like Trump. She's controlling us, right?
Oh, this is a narrative of power.
This is a narrative of power.
Did you say us, like us in this room?
Well, you said so and such people to enjoy, and we all just said that we enjoyed it.
Like Conrad is the disenfranchised, right? He's women, he's people of color.
This narrative of power, let's hear it.
And then the ant is like the 1%. She's oppressing him. And then Sredni Vashtar, what would he symbolize in this narrative?
Bernie Sanders.
He's like Bernie Sanders.
He is like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, you can feel that ant sure felt the burn at the end.
You know what? In the end, I just think it's a fun story, and
Donald Trump won't let us eat
falls
toast.
apart.
But you can't like it unless you're an effeminate homosexual.
No, you can like it.
Isn't that what you said?
No, that's not what I meant.
But it is what you said, I'm pretty sure.
Everybody who listens to the Bookening knows I'm the most masculine heterosexual that's ever lived. And I like this story pretty well.
I mean, you've got your bow and arrow slung across your
back.
So
much for your story, Brandon.
Yeah, so much for my story.
Yeah. We'll have a ferret eat your neck.
Yeah.
Your kind of literature teaching that you get at Lighthouse Christian Academy on display right here.
Yeah, this is awful stuff.
All right, let's do some donor scream outs. Hey, I like this story. I think it's a fun story. There's nothing to say about it, but I recommend that people read it because it's a lot of fun.
Brandon, I'm sorry. You're a great teacher.
Thank you.
Brandon is a fantastic teacher, as everyone that listens to the Bookening knows.
I was only just reaching deep for something I could bring to this episode.
I think it was fun, Jake.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, I think
in the end, this story is really fun. And I think what this is evidence of is sometimes you can overanalyze something.
Yeah, sometimes there's not a lot to say. And maybe that's the real lesson.
And I think that's kind of what we've said in the past is sometimes when you overanalyze things, you just bring out stuff that everybody knows already, but doesn't. Why do you have to articulate it?
Right.
Why do you have to articulate it? Yeah. We all know that
sounds smart.
We all know
about being smart. It's about sounding smart.
Yeah, it's about sounding smart. We all know those things about Munro. We all know that those things about his urbane sensibilities come through in this story, but in the end, who cares? It's a fun story.
It's a fun story.
Like the fact that it entertains us doesn't mean, and the fact that maybe he wrote it for his urbane fans and we still enjoy it, it doesn't mean that you're urbane and effeminate. It doesn't have to mean that. It could just mean that he, despite himself, wrote a fun little story.
Yeah.
That's entertaining.
Yeah.
About a ferret that kills a cousin. You know who else was urbane and pretentious with their stories and doesn't entertain me? Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, shots fired. Guys, let's call out.
I'm with you on that, Brandon.
Yeah.
I support that. I take back everything I said. Booyah.
Booyah.
They tried to give each other a high five, and Jake's hairy mole rubbed against Brandon's fat. Let's scream out.
This is our most loving episode ever.
Yeah, there's been a lot of love in this horror week of horror, or whatever we're calling it.
People don't realize we're trapped in a cabin together.
Yeah, and
surrounded by a forest of willows.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that one. We'll talk about that. We'll save that one for last because I'm not going to put Lovecraft last.
Ooh, why not? That's the
goodness.
best one.
Oh, it's me. No, I am the monster. Save it for tomorrow, Brandon. All right. Let's.
What a piece of garbage.
That's pretty bad.
I don't even remember. I didn't even remember reading it. I read it like last week, and then I was like, wait, what is this outsider story?
Jake,
and I was like, what the heck?
I'm going to give you the privilege of reading to our listeners tomorrow the first sentence of this story, because this is a doozy. It's one of the most awesome.
Nothing could make me wish that I was reading Frankenstein.
Wow. All right, we'll get to it.
I literally forgot that I read this stupid thing last week. I was like, what is this story that is...
He has selective
the
amnesia
heck?
about this story.
Did I forget to read this? And then I finally remembered, oh yeah, this is that story that I was like, what the heck? Why are we reading this?
The most influential horror writer of the 20th century, guys.
Fair enough. I
and
guess.
we'll-
I don't see how this proves that.
Boy, does
Or
it not.
demonstrates it.
But we'll talk about it. Let's scream out Galactic Princess Emily.
Ah!
Jeremy, the dark-hooded Lord of Death.
Ah!
Don't even have to scarify that one. Nathan, not
Princess Baby Doom
me.
Die or whatever.
Yeah, Prince Bear, or we could say Prince Scare, and
Ooh.
Princess Bug, or I'll say Princess Slug of Death Doom Die.
Ah!
Oh, got a little girl
Wow,
in there.
yeah.
That was gross.
Death rattle. Nathan, not me.
Oh!
Nathan, like a hangman's not me, I should say.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how to make this one scary. And of course, Ryan, the dead Avenger, and Judith of the Ladies of Just Knives.
Yeah. Just knives.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
And Danny the Jude, like, hey Jude, because John Lennon was abusive.
Don't.
And DJ Sammy G.
DJ Sammy G. Ah!
All right, we'll call out some more people tomorrow, and we'll read H.P. Lovecraft's Spooktacular Festival of Fright, The Outsider. Oh no. Why? Why? Okay, bye everybody.